U.S. President Trump has announced he intends to impose tariffs on pharmaceutical imports, and one of the largest exporters of pharmaceuticals to the U.S. that would be hit by the tariffs? China. Why is the U.S. so worried? Is Trump trying to break up China's strong grip on pharmaceutical imports? China's biotech industry has undergone a sea change in the last few years. 10 years ago, it used to focus on the manufacturing of generic drugs. But in recent years, China started making global headlines with its new innovative drugs and biotech inventions. Ozempic, for example, is the world's top weight loss drug of 2023, with global sales of about $14 billion. Its maker, Novo Nordisk, is the most valuable company in Europe, with a market capitalization of $521 billion in October 2024. In China, there are several drugs due to be launched within 2025, competing directly with Ozempic. One Chinese drug maker preparing such a release is Innovent Biologics.
我们已经在开展针对 Ozempic 的一个头对头的3期临床实验。就是针对超重的人群进行这样的实验。我们有信心在3期临床实验里面证明这个马斯杜肽的一个有效性。
In China, a number of immunotherapy cancer drugs are in late-stage clinical trials. Some of these drugs have even been approved for use in the United States.
这个生物制药呢，是新质生产力的非常重要的一部分。目前呢，2023年的数据呢，中国在医药行业的这个市场份额已经在世界上呢占据了差不多30%左右的空间。那么世界呢，在2030年呢，差不多能够实现3万亿美元的这样的规模。如果按照这个层面上来讲，中国呢在2030年呢，医药的这个销售差不多能够到1万亿美元。
State resources are pouring into biotech because the Chinese government considers this a crucial pillar of its new quality productive forces. The Shanghai Center of Biomedicine Development is one of 5 research and transformation platforms in this one city alone. This government-funded center supports over 100 companies annually by providing services in concept validation, pilot production, financing, and regulation support. One of them is ComBio Therapeutics.
这个地方就是生药中心给我们提供的中试放大的空间。那如果没有生药中心提供这么一个地方的话，从那个资金的投入，还有包括时间，都会把这个项目延后至少1年吧。
ComBio Therapeutics makes genetically engineered bacterial drugs. The government revamped one of their production lines for the startup in just half a year. What was previously used to manufacture chemical drugs was converted to make biological drugs. The new line significantly reduces production costs for ComBio Therapeutics. This sort of state support has helped grow China's EV industry in the past. Now, the same playbook is being applied to new quality productive forces, like biotech.
特别是针对我们一些新赛道的技术，跟监管机构的合作也是相当重要。所以我们在这个过程当中呢，也是发挥了统筹资源形成共识的这样的一个作用。
中国在过去的10年这个推动医药行业满足于高质量生活和高质量经济生产和发展的这个相关的立法和指导的意见突破100步。
Besides providing for a sizable domestic market, China's major biotech companies all have a strategy for exports. And with Chinese cancer drugs, diabetes drugs, and weight loss drugs costing a fraction of Western pharma brands, the global pharma industry is set for a major shakeup in the years ahead. Western pharmas must now choose to compete or collaborate, and some big global pharmas have chosen the latter. In 2024, Merck, a leading science and technology company, increased its investment in a collaboration center in Shanghai. An additional €14 million investment was made to support new research facilities.
We have a very large number of clinical trials that we are running in China, and we systematically consider China as being one of our priority markets for any new development that we do. The other thing which is important to mention is that we do believe that there is a lot of very interesting innovation coming out of China and which can serve patients across the globe. And we have done relatively recently some major partnerships with Chinese biotech and biopharma companies where we licensed in some of their innovations, and the idea is that we co-develop them and bring them not only to Chinese patients but even to global patients across the world.
With an aging population, China's patient population is also fast expanding. This provides opportunity for more R&D, more clinical trials, and more drug discoveries.
I think China can play a major role in that. Why? Because China has, number one, an extreme wealth of data, given the size of the population, the size of patient populations, number one. And second, I think China has taken also the lead in digitizing all these data. So if we can tap into these data, we will find better solutions for patients and bringing new medicines to patients faster.
China's ambition to go from manufacturer to innovator is just getting started. But the ambition has been fraught with hurdles. In September 2024, the U.S. House of Representatives passed a biosecure bill. This bill forces U.S. companies to cut ties with certain Chinese biotech firms involved in contract drug discovery and manufacturing. Some Western media reports have pointed out that drug shortages and delayed clinical trials for medicines would probably follow from the biosecure bill. In one recent survey of pharma executives, over 90% of respondents indicated that the Biosecure Act's passage would set back their drug pipelines.
I think a lot of this has to do with the pandemic. And during the pandemic, Americans were quite shocked to realize that basic goods were not being produced here in the United States, and they're almost entirely being produced in China. And that, for example, really hurt when basic things like masks, protective equipment, medical devices, they didn't have enough of them during the pandemic. This was a real big wake-up call, particularly for Washington policymakers. And with the instability in the world, particularly tensions between the US and China, this has really led now to a new focus by policymakers to try and understand what other vulnerabilities does the US have when it comes to dependencies on China.
President Trump's proposed tariffs are expected to drive up healthcare costs in the US because of its rippling effect. For example, China is one of the largest suppliers of active drug ingredients for generic drugs in the US, which will likely see a supply chain price increase. In a letter to President Trump in February, the American Hospital Association said that tariffs may reduce availability of cancer and heart medicines, as well as antibiotics like amoxicillin from China. On the other hand, the proposed tariffs' impact on China pharma exporters will be mixed. While the U.S. is China's largest pharma export market, Chinese pharmaceutical companies have also grown new markets in Europe and the Global South in recent years.